Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to The Disturbing Truth. So, why do we hear that only men can be prophets? And is that really true? For Muslims, it would be impossible that a woman would be called a prophet. It would be blasphemy. It's like insane. It's not possible. But let's just pose this question. Can women be prophets? We will delve into this topic today, and we will look into and reveal a disturbing truth. A truth revealed by Al-Sadiq, the Qa'im, from him is peace. And Jesus said, when you find the truth, you'll be disturbed. I'm here today with Sarah Al-Mahdi, Alex Al-Mahdi, and Saiha Al-Mahdi, and I'm Jasmine Al-Mahdi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. So, I'm thinking to go into this topic, we need to first delve into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam to see what type of titles that exist for people who have communicated with God and people who have gotten revelations from God.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, first of all, in order to, understand who can be a prophet, who can be a messenger, whether it can be a man or a woman, we have to first, find out what the words and the titles mean.
Exactly.
So there are multiple titles given to people who were either inspired by God or sent by God for some kind of mission, or he just told them to do something and they would have to do it. So one of them would be a prophet, and a prophet is just somebody who has direct communication from God by one way or another, speaking to an angel, maybe an inspiration, where God speak or hearing a voice of God. And then there is another one that's called a priest. And a priest basically acts as a mediator between God and the rest of the people.
And we're strictly talking about Christianity here, aren't we?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Judaism and Christianity.
Christianity and Judaism, the Muslim one, we'd have to get into it altogether separately because it's a different story.
Yeah.
Because I think it was because mostly they don't believe in the other books. The Christians, they're not on the truth, but at least they believe in the Jewish writings as well, because they believe that God has the power to preserve all of his books, not just one. So a priest in Christianity and Judaism would be somebody who would act as a mediator between people and God. They would usually be performing some kind of rituals, like purification rituals in the temple. Usually they would be responsible for the upkeep of the temple, etc. And then there is a judge, there's a book of Judges in the Judaism. And it's basically people before Samuel anointed their first king, Israel kept going astray. So God would send them these rulers called judges. He would appoint them to save the Israelites, bring them back to God, help them against their enemies, etc. So they would basically, it's like another word for a ruler, like for a tribe of Israel. And then there is a king. A king is like the next level. It's kind of similar like a judge, but it's more. It's a higher position. They usually make laws. They stuff like that. And then there's another title that's specific to Christianity, because Jesus, he actually had 12 disciples, which is the first time that we hear the word disciple, apostle.
Yeah, apostle.
So he had 12 of the apostles, and one of the things that was part of Jesus's ministry was that he actually sent his own messengers, because he said to his disciples, he said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So go therefore and make disciples of all nations. So he basically appointed them to go be leaders of the people to bring them closer to God and also act as his messengers. So Jesus had his own messengers. Actually, they came straight from him, and they were called apostles.
Okay.
And then there is the special title of a king / savior, which is called the Messiah, which is the title of Jesus, because he was promised a promised king to the believers. So it's like a special title that's only been
only
coined
for the king,
by Messiah.
for Jesus.
And I notice here with these titles, and I notice here these titles, as you said, they go for the Jewish people believe in it, but also the Christian people believe in it. And then we have these two special titles. I noticed that we talk about prophets, but we don't talk about a title called messengers, right?
Yeah.
As for in Islam, you have prophets and messengers. And it's because the Christians and Jews view that all these people with these titles are messengers, right?
Yeah.
But with Islam, it's a bit different, right?
Yeah. So in Islam, we have, of course, the prophets, and we also have the messengers. And like I was like, peace be upon him, he taught us that the definition of a prophet is that I'm going to read it out actually, so we can have his exact words. Otherwise, you can't do justice to that.
Of course not.
So, okay, so we know that Islam recognizes 124,000 prophets, and basically, and in the end times, there'll be 3 on 3 that will come, and they are the messengers. And Al-Sadiq, peace be upon him, says that the definition of prophet, that it's a rank that is, of course, higher than being an ordinary believer. And in this rank, the belief of the believer has intensified to such a degree that God has made him a vessel whereby he may receive inspiration, words of truth, and even prophetic insight from God. They also have the ability to interpret them correctly. So basically, a prophet is, as what Sasha already mentioned, someone who gets a divine revelation from God and always speaks the truth. And then the other is the messenger, which is a higher. It's a higher rank than the prophet. So it's a prophet that is assigned to deliver a message or warning to a particular people. So now there's a difference, key difference here. Some messengers were sent to nations, others to tribes, others were sent to a particular family, and yet others were sent to a single individual. In all cases, the messenger has a task of delivering his message to someone on God's behalf and by his instruction. So basically, every messenger is a prophet, but not all prophets are messengers. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, in Islam, particularly Shia Islam, we have the rank of Imam, which the Shias really, for them, is the highest. Like all scholars, everyone agrees upon it. It's one of the highest ranks. And Al-Sadiq has said about that is, no, basically, we don't need to really go into the Imams as much in detail because it's not really relevant to what we're talking about. But in any case, Imams are another group.
It is a title.
It's a title that's the highest. But the difference between them is that they are the ones, there's a huge difference between Imams and messengers. Because some scholars say that they're all like messengers, and messengers come with not covenants, but they come with jurisprudence and books. But it's not the case because prophethood, for example, he is classed as a messenger in the Quran, but he never came with a covenant, nor did he come with a book, which means that the interpretation of the scholars is false. And Al-Sadiq makes that very clear. An Imam is someone who actually brings a new covenant, a new law, a book, and such of them, and those of them were Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the covenant bringers. So the key difference between messenger and prophet is that messengers are tasked with spreading a divine message and warning mankind or calling for societal reforms, right? Prophets receive divine communication but are not always given the duty to pass it on or deliver specific messages. Basically, there's a hierarchy of faith. That's what we're trying to say. And the point of the hierarchy of faith is that
these are the ones, the higher the faith, the more they can be trusted to do like these important tasks, basically.
Yeah, according to the level of determination and faith. And because being a prophet, a believer, means that you don't only believe like in God, when you go to church or you go to a mosque, like you have to realize, you have to believe that God is a very real reality, and your reality is not that you are here for a little while, you're enjoying your family, your job, your your whatever, and then also go to church on Sunday. You know, it's like you live and breathe the fact that God is real and that He is your master, your commander, the one that tells you what to do and nobody else.
It's like you have this certitude within you.
Yeah, certitude and
so
determination.
you're firm on it. Yeah,
determination to be able to share it with others.
Exactly.
Not just, risk your life to tell other people, hey, like, what are you doing? God told you not to do that.
Exactly.
So these Al-Azm prophets, basically, they were the ones with the most determination. They were the ones basically who were trusted to bring a new jurisprudence.
Exactly.
So after the covenant was broken, they were the ones bringing a new one, which is obviously like the hardest job, because the other messengers, they were acting from like a previous covenant rules, basically.
Yeah. So the point is that we have to know the definition of messenger, and that is the definition of a messenger.
Yeah, and if we go into depth, because you're talking about the prophets, for instance, we know that there are 124,000 prophets, and the Quran mentions them. And just like you said, the prophets, they're like on a simpler level. So it's not simple. There's nothing simple, but it's like a hierarchy, like you mentioned. So first you have a non-believer.
It's like a ladder, like a spiritual ladder towards God. You know?
So you have a non-believer, then you have a believer, and then you have a prophet, and prophet gets inspiration and makes prophecies, right? But doesn't really send a message to the people, doesn't go out and try to send a message to a nation from God.
They don't always have like instructions to do something. It's just they're receiving
divine
a message,
inspiration.
basically. Yeah.
So then we have the next level, which is a messenger. And a messenger is a prophet that got inspiration, but now this prophet also has to go and spread a message. So this person who is a messenger has enough certitude, enough belief, and have enough faith that they can now have the courage to go out and speak something that others might laugh at, right?
Exactly.
Or go to a ruler with the message from God, like Moses.
Exactly.
Yes,
So these messengers we know are 313.
Yes.
Okay, they were
Like
that much in number.
Best of the 124,000.
Yeah, so you see how big of a difference it is. 124,000 were prophets and only 313 were messengers. So God chose them to deliver a message and rule over a people.
Exactly.
The next step would be something above the messenger. And this person would have enough faith to spread the message. And it's a message that might go against the previous messages. So for instance, if we look at Moses, he was a messenger, and then we have Jesus who came, and he then went ahead and he gave another message. It is from God still, but the message differs from the message that Moses brought. So now this person has to have even more courage to go against what was said before and expect that the people would go against him, right? And say like, what are you doing? You're going against the message of Moses, just like they did. Jesus brought a ruling saying that divorce is not okay and it's not a part of the law of God. And they said, but Moses allowed it, So he had the courage to go against, if you want to say it. He's not going against, but he's just delivering a new message.
Yeah.
And out of those 313, it was only 5, like you mentioned. There were only 5 prophets that did that.
It's such like a rare level of faith, basically, and determination that these 5 have.
They reached such a high level.
Exactly. They were the ones trusted to bring in this new set of laws. And there's like one rank that's above that, basically, and I'll just go into it quickly, which is the rank of 2 bows or less, which is the rank of God in creation, basically. And this rank was only reached by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. So in the Quran, there's this story about the night journey, basically. So he's taken up to a high station, like higher than even the angel Gabriel can go. Like he's told by the angel Gabriel, I can't like come with you anymore. And then he gets to this state where he's like 2 bows or less, like in closeness to God. And the only thing like that's separating him and God is this green veil. And there's a hole the size of a needle, which the light of God is shining through. And basically through this hole, the light shines through onto Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. And it basically, he just dissolves into the light of God, basically. So he reaches this state where he's kind of oscillating between having a self and being Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, and he's just being God, like in his other state. So this is like such a high level that he was, given the task that God has. So he has the ability to send forward messengers after this. You know, he is like God in creation. So all of the affairs of creation are kind of in his hands after reaching this like high rank. Yeah. And he's the only one who attained this.
Yeah. God now, like, of course, he dissolved into God, so God used him as because he became the ultimate vessel for God.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like we said before, you know, so all of these titles, they overlap. So, you know, people can be a prophet. They can also be a king at the same time. They can be an imam and a prophet at the same time.
Messenger.
Because they're receiving these inspirations. They can be a messenger simultaneously.
Yeah, because a prophet is just somebody who is able to receive messages from God. This is the definition of it.
Yeah.
So if you are on a higher level, you could be from the lower levels too, or you are, but someone from the lower level cannot also be from the higher level at the same time.
Unless they reach that rank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the question is basically, can women be prophets? Can they be messengers?
Well, and that answer is in the Old Testament. So lucky for us, we have the Old Testament still with us. I wish people would pay more attention to it when it comes to reading the Quran and the Bible and along with it. Because our Sadiq has taught us that these books, if they're separated, they'll just create chaos and confusion. It's all three of them together that has actually made us realize, oh, wow, all the answers are there.
Exactly.
They were actually between our hands. If all three, if they just held hands, I mean, they are called the Abrahamic faiths for a reason.
It's like a trilogy, right? So they
trilogy, yes.
Trilogy.
You know, imagine, you know, there's only one God, and you believe that. You say you're a Muslim, you believe in only one God, or you're Christian, you believe in one God, you know, so on. And then a God sends a divine revelation, and then you think it comes from some other guy, and then you reject it completely. It's like, you know, if an author releases like, you know, a book, a really cool, amazing, epic book, but only one chapter at a time.
Yeah, and like imagine you read the end,
and then imagine you're
start in the middle.
You get the second chapter, and you're like, blasphemy. This is not from this author. It's from someone else because it doesn't look like the first chapter.
Yeah, or you choose to read the middle book and then you just keep that one with you, and then you're like, you refuse to move to the next book, and you're like, I'm satisfied with this one.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
So so the answer is in the Old Testament, and specifically the Talmud, you know. So the Talmud, it names 7, and the key word here is prophetesses. The prophet, male, prophetesses, female. So this word exists, and it's in the Talmud. And they're named. So, for example, there were 7 prophetesses of the Israelites. And examples, we're going to go through some examples of a few.
Yeah, that would be
Shall
great
we?
to see. Yes, please.
Yes, it's exciting. So the first of them is Miriam. Miriam was the sister of Moses. So Miriam is known that she received divine communication. Just like, divine communication. Who gets divine communication?
A prophet.
Yes, exactly, a prophet. So it's written right there that Miriam was given divine communication. And then we have another one who is Sarah, the wife of Abraham. We know that she received messages from God. So it's clear from Miriam and Sarah, just them two alone, just right now, that women could receive divine messages through dreams or inspiration.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, or speaking to angels as well.
Exactly, or speaking to the angels. So, and then you have, as you already mentioned, the word judges. Like the book of Judges is very well known in Judaism. And here women could serve as judges. So, for example, one judge is, who do we have? It's Deborah.
Deborah was an amazing woman. You know, she ruled Israel as a judge for 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, this woman,
she led
and they
armies.
looked up to her,
and
they listened to her.
A military.
She commanded
she gave
armies.
commands. And she communicated with God. It's written there that she communicated with God. So while Deborah wasn't a king, as they say, like the word, she led the Israelites similarly to how a king would, though.
Yeah, because at that time, no one had been appointed as a king. So Judges was actually the hardest, the highest
and this
level.
was before kings were appointed.
Yeah, this was before the first king of Israel, which was Saul. So
Exactly.
before that, they had judges,
Yes.
which were the rulers
Exactly.
and the lawmakers. And
So then you have the kings or priests in Judaism. So Mary may be considered or played a similar role to a priest, like a shepherdess. As she was the leader of the women during Moses' time. Yeah? And then you have another one, very well famous one, and her name is Huldah. Prophetess Huldah. She was during the reign of King Josiah. Josiah's aides found an ancient scroll, which was one of Moses' books, and that warned about idol worship. So this scroll was given to Huldah, and she interpreted it as wrath, like wrath is going to come upon the Israelites. So Josiah started seeking her guidance. He was listening to her. And which means because he was obeying and listening to her guidance and her commands, which this became that she became a what? A proof upon him from God. So it was clear from here that Huldah acted like an intermediary between between Josiah and God.
yeah, and she
played that role.
She got inspiration about
Exactly.
Yeah,
So if you go based on the definition of prophet or messenger, these amazing women fit that description very well.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
that definition applies to them.
Yeah, for sure. And we have also some characters in Christianity, which came later on, that we also know had similar titles.
yes, of course. Very popular, famous one all over all the religions is Mary, mother of Jesus. She was a prophetess. She was, she was raised in the temple since she was a little baby. She was given up to the temple. She communicated. God communicated with her. There's even a story. I believe that she used to. The priest used to come to her to bring her food, and then he would see like fruits and food by her, already there, and he'd be like, why, where did this food come from? And she said, I asked God and he brought it to me.
Wow. Yeah.
And when she was visited by the angel, she was praised by the angel, said that she was the beloved of God. So she communicated with the angels, and also God inspired her himself when he told her to shake the tree when she was giving birth. And then he told her to drink water while she was in labor to ease her pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then also another one that's been downplayed by by history is Mary Magdalene.
Hugely downplayed.
And she was, sent by Jesus.
Yeah.
She was one of the apostles, and actually she was the first one to see Jesus after the crucifixion, and she recognized him, and he told her he sent her as his messenger to the other apostles to tell them the good news
So
that
they call it the
he was
apostle of the apostles.
that he was there. So she was a prophetess, because as everybody believes and knows that, Christians believe him to be God incarnate, but the Muslims still believe that God spoke through Jesus. So it was Jesus was a vessel; he was just an instrument. So really, God sent her. So she was sent as a messenger, and she received revelation from God.
And that's huge. Like if you just imagine that the idea that the disciples are usually the ones who are seen as the big ones who delivered the message of Jesus, but then there's this woman who is so much greater, who was the one who actually was in contact with Jesus, who was the one who spread his message to the disciples, to the apostles that after went and spread the message. So it was like
she did the same job as them after that too. She went, she was also a messenger, and she also spread the message of of Jesus Christ, and
there's actually lots of references, that she was closer than the disciples. She was the apostle to the apostles, described
but
as.
Of course, the church fathers would never tell you that.
So these things have been distorted as well, like everything else. So in Islam as well, it's a controversial topic. Basically, can women be prophets? Can women be messengers? And the general understanding in Islam is that it's impossible for a woman to be a prophet or a messenger. But actually, this is kind of like an ignorant opinion, and it's not rooted in fact, because if we look at the Quran, if we look at the narrations from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, peace be upon them, we can actually see that they really contradict this opinion that, the majority of people have today. So Mary, mother of Jesus, in the Quran, there's a whole chapter dedicated to her. And like you said, she received this inspiration telling her to shake the palm tree.
So the dates fall off.
Exactly. Yeah. And she received the message from Jesus telling her that she was going to give birth to him. So she's for sure like ticking this box, like she was receiving this inspiration. And there's also the other example of the mother of Moses. She also receives this inspiration, and actually she's given instructions in this inspiration that she receives from God. And it's kind of almost like, the message Abraham receives, where he's told... it's not exactly the same, but she's told to do something risky, basically, with her child.
Yeah,
whereas Abraham was told to kill his son. Yeah. She's told basically to just abandon Moses and put him in a basket.
Essentially, he could die.
Exactly, yeah.
She doesn't know that.
So she receives this inspiration in the Quran, put him in the chest, then cast him into the river. The river will wash him to shore, where an enemy of mine and an enemy of his will pick him up. And I have bestowed upon you love from me, so that you may be reared before my eyes. So, she had to have faith in this message. She had to have trust in this message that when she was, following these instructions, that Moses was going to be okay.
Yeah, how did she hear that?
Exactly.
Inspiration. She was a prophetess. She received the message from God.
And she believed it.
Exactly. She believed it, and she followed and obeyed.
Exactly. And, this message that she received from God, it led to Moses and the whole ministry of Moses and the whole course of the Abrahamic faiths changing. It was a really... all of these events that happened that followed from it, it was huge. Basically.
It's huge because if you just think about it logically, at that time, she was the only woman that was able to have a son. So like all the boys were killed, and this little son was supposed to be saved, and she managed to. That's a miracle. She managed to save him, and he became a huge character, a huge like someone who saved everyone.
He brought a covenant.
New covenant. Yeah.
So it's big.
It's a covenant prophet.
All that because she believed in her divine inspiration.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
We do have, so these are characters now.
Isn't it how sad it is that how people overlook all this?
Yeah, it is.
Now, like if you think about it, now that we're actually going through the what Al-Sadiq has taught us.
Yeah, like think of these steps that these women took basically when they were receiving their inspiration, like how much trust they had, like how much faith they had, how strong they were.
How much risks they took. And exactly. How strong they were. And yet they downplay that in history. Of course, only the Mahdi can come and, the oppression that was done to them throughout history. He's like, he's freeing them. This is a form of justice brought towards these.
He's glorifying.
He's glorifying these characters.
Bringing their dignity back because they did amazing things. In the name of God,
and God did. And by the way, and nobody can say God suppressed the history. God wrote their history. We're reading it. Where do you think we got it from?
It's from they're overlooking it when they read these stories.
They don't. Yes, exactly. They don't talk about it enough. They don't spread it in the way it's meant to be spread.
To be honest, one of the things that always made me feel bad when I was in Christianity was that the only women that they really talked about was the one that was like the perfect wife. There's like this this perfect woman who like sacrifices everything to feed her children, and she makes quilts. She makes quilts and brings food to the children. And the thing is that I was never like this. It made me feel so bad because I wanted to be a prophet. I wanted to do something amazing, something cool. I wanted to part the waters. But here I am, like I'm a woman, and my church is telling me that this is wrong.
You can't even talk in church. Like
you're horrible woman. You're a terrible woman because you don't want to be a housewife, you know?
That's very
I mean, what you're saying is really important. As a woman, there's nothing wrong with, and it's actually really beautiful that the woman takes care of her children, takes care of the house, takes care of all these things. It's really beautiful.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
it's not all that she can do.
Yeah.
And that's what the Qa'im Al-Sadiq, from him his peace, is raising and showing that there were women in history that did huge things. They changed the world.
They're
changed
basically
the world.
more than just someone's wife or daughter or mother. They were those things, amazingly those things, and great examples for those things.
And that's what's so great. They were able to do that, and at the same time, they were able to change the world.
And the most important message is that God doesn't look at what reproductive system you have or what the appearance of your body is. He looks at the heart, he looks at your faith, and then he appoints you according to that, not because you are a woman or a man.
I remember like back in the Black Banners Forum, basically someone posted a question, and Al-Sadiq answered basically, can a woman be like a Mahdi? Can a woman be an imam? And he responded to the question that like, no, like the reason is because like people aren't really like ready, like the like in general, people are more likely to listen to a man. So that's kind of the reason, actually.
It's
kind
basically
of like,
a us problem.
It's this case again where like God gives the people what's best for them in order for them to receive God's message. He gives them what's most appropriate for them, like in order to save as many people as possible.
Yeah, so it's really an insult to them that they would never listen to a woman, that God has to bring you a man because otherwise you wouldn't listen to God.
God speaks to the people in a way that they can understand them. That's why he's so merciful. He speaks to them through a man who looks like them, that they're familiar with. So he's giving them basically what's going to save the most amount of people.
At the end of the day,
this is what the most people will accept. You know, actually one of the brothers said something as well, like bees, they have like a female leader basically. So people were just like not on the level of bees.
The bees, so that's how, but that's amazing.
It's the truth, you know? It is.
No, it's really amazing.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that we've now brought up a lot of stories of women known in Christianity and Judaism, and even the women that you brought up, they are written in the Quran. Yes, they are, though, women that were living at the time before Prophet Muhammad. So I thought maybe we could go into
because women after the time of Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, so there were a lot of women also that have made great things that were living at the time of Prophet Muhammad. So or after. So yeah,
you know, I'm sorry, but there it just popped into my head. Isn't there a story in the Quran where God honors the women honors the wife of Pharaoh when he says that in a disbeliever I have this example, and in a believer I give you the example of the wife of Pharaoh.
Yeah, Lady
who
Asya.
spoke yeah. So he uses this in the Quran where he not only praises her for being a believer, but he uses her as an example of a true believer. You know, which is a great honor, and I don't really understand why the Muslims are so against, you know, women being prophets. It's a I don't understand this at all because I don't know where it comes from, because it's definitely not from the Quran or Prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
No, and this woman, Lady Asya, was a really important woman, and it's mentioned in the narrations how huge of a person she is, or rank that she has. And there are other women that we can tell stories of. We have Lady Narjis. Okay, she's the mother of Imam Mahdi. So at that time, before she met any of the imams, she was just a daughter of a Roman king. Okay, so she was a descendant of Simon Peter. So she wasn't upon Islam. And the king was in war with the Muslims at that time. And one of the nights she fell asleep and she had a dream. And in that dream, she was told to escape, to run away from her father. And in the dream, she also saw that she would be taken as a slave. And she was also told that the person who would take you as a slave, you will end up marrying his son. And what she does, she wakes up and after she'd had this dream, and bear in mind, this is just a dream. And people might just think, oh, dreams are something subconscious and it doesn't really mean anything. But this woman, no, she had faith in God, and she decided to listen to this dream and follow it. And she escaped and she ran away. And truly, did a man buy her as a slave? And this man was a really good man, and he let her live in his house. and she ended up marrying his son. And so what she did was actually what other prophets have done before. She believed in a dream.
Also, she was captured as a slave. Like, imagine she was a Roman princess.
A princess.
She went through the slavery, and she was in the market, and the slave of the imam
just
had to go
listen to God.
buy her.
Yeah.
It was just because she believed in it, even though it looked
It's
really
just like an
strange.
incredible step to take based on a dream,
For sure.
basically.
I mean, it was very. Look, you have to imagine yourself as a Roman princess who just embarked a ship to go towards the a whole different country, and then when you get there, you're enslaved, and you're like, oh, and now you're gonna get sold.
Yeah.
But luckily, out of all the people that took her, and ended up being one of the servants of the imam.
Yeah, so no, the man who took her was the father of the imam. So in the end, what actually happened, and he's a servant, of course, of God. So in the end, what did she do? She did exactly what Jacob did. She did exactly what Abraham did. She had a dream, just like Abraham. He had a dream to go and slaughter his son.
Yeah.
And she also just had a dream to go and escape from her father and hand herself over to become a slave. And she was then brought up in the house of the father of Imam al-Hassan, who was then, he's Imam Hassan al-Askari, who then was married, who then married her, right? And that's huge. And she gave birth to the savior, the Imam Mahdi, right?
Exactly.
She gave birth. So this woman did something great, right? And what did we say a prophet is? A prophet is someone who gets a revelation or inspiration from God, and she did that, and she acted upon it. She had faith enough to act upon it. We have other examples, and a huge character that a lot of Muslims revere is the daughter of Prophet Muhammad.
Yes.
And that's Fatima al-Zahra, peace be upon her. And she was a woman that Prophet Muhammad would bow to when she walked in, when she entered the room, and not because of worshipping her or obeying her, no, because he loved her and respected her.
Yeah. And
she
knew her knowing.
He knew her knowing. He knew her rank. He knew what she was. So he couldn't but bow down to her when she enters, right? The narrations speak of this woman so highly. It says that she was a light that existed before the creation of the entire world.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And we urge people to really read The Goal of the Wise, to really know the true rank of Lady Fatima.
For sure. Yeah, she is spoken of in there in a really great way. And the hadith keeps speaking, the many hadiths, they speak of her in such a great way. It mentions that she has such a special place with God, right? It mentions as well that her, God said to the Prophet, if it wasn't for Ali, I would never created you. And if it wasn't for Fatima, I would have never created Ali. So like she's even, she's in such a high rank. And the name Fatima has to do, the hadith say the name Fatima has to do with the very substance and the light that was used to form the entire creation, And she's the manifestation of the extreme mercy of God. Imam Ali is the manifestation of mercy, but she's the extreme mercy.
So in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the intensely merciful are Ali and Fatima.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing in itself. Now, something else that I find really it's just a wow factor. It's just so wow is that the Imams say we are God's proof upon creation, and then they say, and Fatima is the proof upon us.
Hujjah of the Hujjahs.
Yes. Yeah. So you mentioned before Lady Asya, and we mentioned Fatima, we mentioned Mary, and Khadija as well. She's also a great woman. These women are called mistresses of all of the women of paradise. So these women were the best, and they are mentioned in hadith. They were the best, the higher rank, and a lot of them, they have actually higher ranks than all the prophets and messengers, except for a few. So that's in itself is huge.
Yes,
just the statement.
I mean, Lady Fatima being a proof upon the proofs himself, which is that
is enough.
That answers your question.
The thing is that it makes so much sense, to be honest. Why the Muslim nation is so astray right now is because they have taken as leaders the people who have killed the daughter of Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And also the rest of the family.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, this woman that Prophet Muhammad bowed to, this woman that has such a high rank, and they just slammed the door and killed her baby and took away from her land, and she had to speak up, shout
them.
up, and she went through so much horrific things,
during
you know.
until she
And the
died.
Prophet Muhammad said, whoever angers Fatima has angered me.
Yeah.
And we know that she was angry at these people, obviously, for what they did when she died.
So after all, these women have, we know that these women received revelations from God, and they had communications with angels.
Yes.
And they didn't carry a message. That's the difference. Now we're getting to this point where, okay, these women were prophets, but they didn't spread a message. So we can say, okay, the men did it. There were men who spread a message, but the women didn't do that. That's a fair point if someone would ask us.
But it was answered.
It's answered.
Alex mentioned it.
Yes. And what is it? It's that the people could not handle taking a message from a leader, from a woman.
You know, even take the example of Mary Magdalene. Even Peter, the vicegerent of God, had a problem with her telling him something.
He's the vicegerent.
Yeah. So
in the Gospel of Mary, in the Gospel of Mary, when she was telling them something that Jesus shared with her in privacy, he questioned the disciples of Jesus Christ were questioning her.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So it's a proof in itself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but
which shows
that's
the creation
going to
struggled.
change.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that women and men, they both have the same exact opportunity to reach the highest ranks that they can. Depends on their own faith and their heart and their determination
and their sincerity. God is looking at the heart, and not the body. He's looking at the soul, not the body of a person. So, it really is people which is causing these limitations and preventing women from being messengers and being leaders. Ahmad al-Hassan, from him, his piece, has said there's no difference to him between men and women apart from a faith.
Yes, exactly.
So, this is kind of the reason why.
But this is why it's amazing what the Riser Al-Sadiq is doing. You see, he's following the exact footsteps of his grandfather, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. Prophet Muhammad, the Muslims all over the world are really wow, he's the liberator of women. You don't know what the women were like back then. He saved them. They were savages back then.
Now
they gave rights, and then we're like, and they're right. He did for that time period.
For sure.
They were burying their girls. Sasha, they were burying their girls alive.
Yeah.
You know, these women were property back then. You can read it. It was throughout history. It's been like that.
To be honest, in the Muslim nations, it's not too far from that. To be honest, I mean the things that I saw in Egypt. Just for 1 year,
But this just goes back to the point, all of these distortions, they're from the non-working scholars, basically. Abba al-Sadiq from his piece, he makes it very clear in this episode where he talks about women prophets that, yes, there's nothing in the scriptures, there's nothing in the Quran saying no women aren't prophets. And
yes, that's
it's
the
clear,
key point.
the evidence that they were receiving these inspirations and these communications is there. So, the reason for this is because people have listened to the Pauls and the Abu Bakrs and the Omars of the religion, basically, these people who came to destroy the religion, and people have followed them. And this is why we have all these, practices and beliefs that, they were not put there by God, basically.
It's true.
So this disturbing truth that we have revealed today is actually that we learned from Al-Sadiq that he revealed from him his peace is a huge thing. And Al-Sadiq from him his peace is here to give justice and give people their rights, whether, like we've spoken before, whether it's the poor, whether it's the whatever it can be, and even the woman,
needy, the widow, the orphan. He's here for all. We're not just talking about women alone. It's not it's not like a show about feminism. It's the concept is a basic human right. Her right that God gave her is what He's bringing back, and I think that's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful, and we are so lucky to be able to get these revelations from him, and we're so lucky to be able to share it with the world.
And we're so lucky to be with him and be a part of his caravan. That's actually the greatest honor. Every man and woman and every creature on this earth, if they want true justice and freedom, they have to be under his banner. And if that is the only message you hear, it should be enough for you.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so in the next episode, inshallah, we'll be talking about another disturbing truth. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to us talking about if a woman can be a prophet or not. And inshallah, we'll see you again. Ma salama.
Cry.